Yeah, yeah, yeah. And Ross and it is Anna Marie. I see that you're both on Zoom. I just wanted to let you know we're just a bit delayed in getting started while we await the district engineer.
Okay, very good.
Is there anything you need?
No, we could do that. I don't.
Get through everything except.
Well, let's give them just 2 more minutes.
Hey, Bob, is the laptop with Zoom running on it? Is it plugged into a power source?
No, but I've got plenty of power, so I'm anticipating that we'll be fine.
Very good.
No. And I'll watch the power source.
Well, I know, but you can't do anything about
Yeah.
it. So we have to switch over to that.
Robert, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, thank you so much, by the way, for putting this together for Zoom. My question is, can you put the laptop closer to the board members when you start the meeting?
Yes.
I couldn't hear very well, and I don't know if they were able to hear everything that I said last month. So thank you very much for doing that.
You have a power cord in case we need one.
I do. I brought one.
But for his computer, not just the.
Yep.
Power.
Okay, great, thanks. Windows. Thank you. And we used to have the additional materials I sent out.
Additional meeting. Wait, these are
Oh,
all.
attendance.
These are all agenda.
Oh, they are. Okay. You've got the full, there you go.
Well, we don't need, is this also an agenda?
Yeah.
Okay, then we don't need-
I thought it got updated.
It did.
But
So this may not be up to date.
I think it is.
What's that?
I think when Taylor put everything.
Yes, that's
out-
the new agenda is on the small package.
what? okay,
Well,
when I-
right, but does the big
Well,
package have the old one then?
Yeah. What would?
The thick
I asked
package
if
would
there's
have the
a
old
difference in
one.
the agenda.
Yeah.
What's the difference with the two agendas instead of?
It is the same.
Okay,
I ran them separately. So there's 2 of them.
all right, well, let's get Mike his and then let's get the meeting started.
We just put some agendas up.
The agenda,
So,
the only thing I spotted was the general manager's report went from 1 item to 3.
Right.
okay, I don't know that. That was not what we were in the package.
Right, but I thought Taylor revised it, sent it back out.
Yeah, but that's why I asked you, is it different than what was in the board package? Because I wasn't gonna look at it. Anyway.
Oh.
It's fine.
Only thing is the added item.
Okay, perfect.
These are supplemental items. Are they all together, Doug? Yeah.
Great. Okay. Right.
Doug,
Yeah.
you ran the report from, but the other items that I had distributed.
Yeah.
Well, I think everyone has them digital.
No, it's on there.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
All right,
We just
perfect.
came out with the same email, so it's pretty good.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
So
there it is.
this is
Okay.
the same packet that I have.
Right.
Okay. All right.
you know what? I thought you needed
Good evening.
a Dell plug, but this doesn't fit yours.
Let's just get started. Mr. Rohr, you have the packet that's sent out, correct? Yes. This is some added items. Here we go.
Then, maybe we can put those other two.
If you want to use this enhanced speaker and microphone, we can use this.
Okay, well, we can get started while you set that up.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and we're at do the roll call.
Yes, President Palmer. Vice President Bayram is absent. Director Army.
Here.
And Director O'Neill is absent due to illness. And Director Ross.
Here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Bob, before proceeding, two things. One, it's still hard to hear the board, so if you could orient the microphone to better pickup, that would be good. I know Ms. Scott was indicating she was having a hard time hearing and being heard. Also, it's hard for me to hear, and I have a pretty good setup. Second, noting that the absence of Director...
Better?
Can you hear? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is that better?
That's better for me. Ms. Scott, is that better for you? She's asking if you could turn the video towards the board members, please.
Yes, and the audio is I think fine.
Had a request for
I
that.
don't know what it will be once I can't see the board members.
There we are. How about that, Ms. Scott?
I guess I see 1, 2, 3. Is that right?
That's right. There are two absences tonight.
That's it.
Got it. Okay, so that would be great. I can't actually tell who's who, but that's fine.
Do we have Directors Army, President Palmer, and Director Ross? Director Ross is in the red coat, closest to you, President Palmer in the middle, and Director Army is at the end.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate your
No
help.
problem.
Okay,
The second item is noting the medical absence of Director O'Neill, and he has been available and unavailable for board meetings. Just under the government code, it would be appropriate for the board to recognize his absence with a vote to accept his absence as a medical absence.
okay. So can I have a motion to accept Director O'Neill's absence as a medical absence?
I will make a motion to accept Director O'Neill's absence as a medical absence.
I second that.
Okay, a first and a second. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, council.
Thank you, Madam President.
All right, moving on to item 4, director comments. Any reports on meeting you've attended on behalf of the district or choose to comment on district activities? Let's start with you, Director Ross.
I don't have anything.
Okay, Director Army.
I have nothing.
The only thing I have to report is I did attend the IRWIM meeting on Monday virtually, where we talked about a next round of state water resources grant funds that'll be available for our area. And there'll be 2 million in the next round available for Santa Ynez and San Antonio watersheds. So we'll be looking at how to maximize that opportunity there. And I also actually did, for your note, I followed up with Hillary Hauser today. She from Heal the Ocean. She'd asked about our potential, participation with those funds, and just again reiterated reiterated her support and asked what she could do to help. So I told her, be certain to let her know. So that's it for me on director comments. Excuse me. Moving on to 5 public comments. Are there any members of the public who want to address the board on an item that is not on tonight's agenda?
Ms. Scott, who's attending by Zoom for via an ADA accommodation, she indicated she has a public comments. Ms. Scott, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, commissioners. I have 2 comments. One is, as you know, we have an increasing number of COVID cases, and that is putting a strain on, our workforce, as well as even the hospitals. My question for you is that, given the increasing COVID numbers, will the February meeting be in a virtual meeting for everyone? I don't know how many people attended tonight's meeting, but when the computer was, being turned around, I think I saw 1 person. If we have so many people that are not coming to these meetings, maybe what these meetings need to be virtual, because I know a lot of people are still, very, very concerned about catching COVID, even if they've had, their booster shots. So that's one question, and you can do that in a special meeting that requires only 24 hours notice. You could go ahead and make a decision at that meeting to go virtual, either for, for a certain number of months, or until the governor, allows more contact. The next question, and this is really, maybe kind of personal, which is, I personally, would be extremely ill if I caught COVID. And I am seeing, or at least I saw 2 board members with their masks under their noses. That is something that, we've been told again and again that we should not do. Our mask needs to cover our nose and our mouth. And so I would just, try to, ask you to be aware of that and demonstrate what we should actually, how we should be conducting meetings to the public, and to make sure that you wear your mask over your nose. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments on an item that are not on the agenda? Okay. Then we will move on to 6, the administrative agenda, meeting minutes for December 8th, and invoice payment BI through 5.
So I have a comment on the minutes. A couple of minor corrections I think should be made. One is,
Okay.
I think that we are trying to say basis of design, not BASES.
That's been a problem.
So let's try to fix that. And then the other one I mentioned that is more procedural is, if you look at the various votes, this is on the 2nd page, the 2nd paragraph, it talks about the action plan being approved, but it doesn't mention Director O'Neill's vote.
Where's that?
I seconded the motion. There were no further. Right, but he needs to vote on it. Which he did. Okay. Well, it doesn't say it here is what I'm trying to say.
So let's.
I agree he did. I remember that he did. But
So can we make those amendments right now and approve the minutes, or do you want to have them brought back, Brad?
I think with. No, I'm
asking Director Ross.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay,
I just wanted to make sure that they captured it. So, but they can do it here.
okay, good. So let's see. Can you read back the amendments, Bob, then, that he wants made and where they are?
One amendment was to ensure that consistently basis of design basis is spelled BASES.
IS.
IS.
It's supposed to be IS. And then that's not just in the minutes, that's in everything.
And then Director O'Neill will be added to the vote that was taken on 7A, the first motion. It will reflect the motion was approved on the following roll call vote. Palmer, aye. Director Wright, Director O'Neill, aye, and then Vice President Bayram absent and Director.
Got it. Good catch. Thanks, Brad. Okay, so with that, those two amendments to the December 8 minutes.
So I move that we approve the minutes with those corrections made.
Okay, do we want to take these separately?
I would think.
Yeah,
you
let's
would.
do that, especially with the amendment. All right, so that's a. there a
Problem is
second?
that I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't know if I can second it or not.
Yeah. good.
I think, Ross, if you want.
If Director Army wasn't present, I think the greater issue is that he should abstain from voting, and so you don't have a majority. So in light of that, my recommendation would be to table approval of the minutes to the next meeting and ask staff to make the corrections as proposed, unless there's any objection from the board.
Makes sense to me.
Thank
Makes
you.
sense, yeah.
Okay, so we'll table 6A and bring those back in February. Moving on to, and thanks again, Brad, for that catch.
Sure.
6B, invoice payment. Any comments or questions, or can I get a motion?
So I assume the finance committee went through these. Is that true?
We did.
Okay.
We went through these and moved them on with recommendation for approval.
Very good.
I'll make a motion to approve the invoice payments as stated in section B.
I will second that.
Okay, there's a first and second. Only discussion from me is just to report that at finance, we did, in reviewing the Stantec invoice, ask that Stantec be available to give an update at the February meeting on work to date. I think they will be doing that anyway as part of the basis of design. But just there were some questions just about work in progress, which is reasonable progress, but questions about work in progress, and then particularly with what additional work has been done on the siting study that was beyond the original scope. So anyway, just as a side note there. So first, any other discussion? Okay.
I just have a quick question. So the Stantec invoice covers what period of time?
The beginning of their work in October through the end of November.
So 2 months.
Okay, well, I'm trying to decipher what it's saying here. So this is, I think it's the first page of their invoice. And it says that they previously billed 17K roughly. They billed the date 50 thou. And then it says current invoice 33,000.
The reason for that is that that was a previous source of work, which included, they've listed here all of the work that they're contracted to do. And preceding this invoice, work was done on the load study and previously billed separately. But that's the amount that's identified as having been previously approved. So it's a total, all of their invoices or work assigned, and the previous amount was for the load study.
The 16,594 is for the load study.
Yeah, so my question is really focused on the 33,000.
That is the total of this particular invoice and excludes the 17,000.
Okay, and so the 33,000 covers a week or a month or what?
As I've said before, from the beginning of their work in October, and I believe it was through the invoice was received in December, so it captures everything through November.
So basically 2 months.
Right.
So my question is about the spend rate. Because if they're gonna spend 300,000 by the middle of the year, they're gonna have to spend a lot more than that. So I just will throw out a recommendation that we check in and see what their plans are to actually complete on time
And
based on that low spend rate.
This really reflects what they've done to date, but you're right. I would expect that you would see increase in invoice cost, especially as they proceed with the 30%.
Well, and this doesn't account for the work they did in December on basis of design.
Right.
So I hear what you're saying, and it's a little hard the way they invoice to understand exactly what percentage of the scope, but that's their kickoff on this phase of it. But that's why I said we want them back here in February to explain their progress today, what they've done and what's remaining.
Yeah, so maybe if we let them know that we want to understand how they're meeting their requirements to spend and get the stuff done in a timely manner.
Well, I think too, as things get identified in there, as they get going and things get identified, they'll assign more people and more hours will be billed because it just starts going. I mean,
Yeah, it's
they're just doing the groundwork.
yeah.
And then I think as things are identified and what they need to put the task money to, they'll start accruing, we'll start accruing more.
Any further, I mean, there's a motion. Any further discussion? Does that satisfy your
Yep.
questions?
Looking for awareness is all.
Understood. Same.
And we'll need a roll call vote with this because it's money.
Right.
So President Palmer,
Aye.
Vice President Bayram is absent. Director Army,
Aye.
Director O'Neill is absent. And Director Ross.
Hi.
Okay, thank you all. Then we'll move on to 7 business items for discussion and action. The first one being A, authorization to enter into an agreement between the district and the State Water Resources Control Board for the Los Olivos wastewater reclamation project. Yay, finally.
Finally, the documents are here. Yes.
And basically, as you know, the district applied for this matching fund grant, began the process, I think, in February and March of last year. And it's gone through several reiterations and reviews at the state level. So basically, the agreement is before you. The agreement in total is actually in the packet with the conditions that are required to meet. The recommendation is that the board adopt the agreement and authorize President Palmer to sign the agreement, and then we'll send it back to the state.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from directors?
So could you help me find where it lists out the tasks that we are supposed to do for this money? Because I couldn't spot them.
It is not in a particular, let's see. It's not in this particular document. It is in the listing, which is the same. And Doug can bear that out. It's the same as the chart shown at the back of the packet.
The chart at the back of the packet.
Yes,
meaning-
there's a chart that references the work is to be done
Right.
by whom.
And this is the chart that Doug did, and I just wanted to mention that in signing this agreement, we're saying we think we can get the job done. And Doug has done a really good job, I think, of putting together the plan for what we're gonna do and who's gonna do it. So Doug, I just want you to weigh in and say that you're confident we can do this, and then I think we can move forward.
Yeah. So, yeah, in the beginning, I went over the details of what was expected in the report with Jody at the water board and feel totally confident we're good.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, and you had, I'm sorry, you had no questions. So just council, have you reviewed the final agreement that's come in from the or from the water board?
I have, in addition to the astute observation and comment by Director Ross, just a couple of points that I'll raise. A.5 talks about submittal of the final project report on or before the due date. Just to point out, to kind of emphasize Director Ross's point, that failure to comply with that may stop the state's reimbursement. So keeping on a schedule is very important on the way to final completion. Point B, point 2 is that you need to have a complete project and pay whatever is not covered by the grant. So again, similar to Director Ross's comment. B.3 is essentially an audit provision, and it's a little bit vague. It doesn't really state what the compliance period might be for responding for requests for verification and information from the water board. But essentially, it's an audit provision. And if they ever need to check on compliance and meeting the deliverables, it's just important to respond to that timely. And then finally, kind of along similar lines is D.9, which incorporates what are called state cross-cutters. And the district is representing that it complies and will continue to comply in addition to with the terms of the agreement, this list of bullet pointed requirements. Not all of them apply, since obviously the district is not a charter city, and it is not part of the Delta Plan constituency findings, but there are some other requirements in here that it will be important to make sure that the project maintains compliance, especially with reporting. Obviously, CEQA applies to the district, and the board have talked about that consistently throughout the discussion of the project, but just to be mindful of these additional requirements that are outside the four corners of the agreement, but still are incorporated as requirements. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Counselor. And so my question then comes back to Doug, because M&S has managed these type of agreements in the past in terms of compliance with the I'll say, as Ross said, outside the four corners of the project and the agreement. Are you any heartburn on any of those? Is any of that new?
No,
To you?
as a matter of fact, I'll just add that he's correct about us being mindful of schedules, but communications is the thing. They label these schedules as tentative or approximate.
Right.
So there's flexibility, but as long as we stay in communication with the grant administrator and we have to adhere to the language, the semantics are important to them to check all the boxes when they review the reports and things. We can do that. We'll make sure that happens.
Okay. And then I noticed that it says that there's no reimbursement for pass-through markups. Did you see that? So in other words, if we have a contractor doing work who marks anything up and then sends that to us, that markup isn't eligible for reimbursement here. It's under B4, under budget costs. So I just want to be clear, either when we're negotiating those contracts, that we don't want to have to be the accountant who's backing all of that out or getting shorted. So I would think the markup would be on any other direct costs that they would pass through to us. I'm just flagging it.
Yeah,
So
and they are addressing the recipients markups, which is the district's markups.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Which would
my bad.
probably not be applicable.
Yeah, they wouldn't.
So we
expect
wouldn't be
contractors
marking
to do it
anything
for
up.
nothing. No,
Okay.
unless
And
we mark
that
it.
occurs
You're right,
in
you're
some
right.
instances where a district might apply, say, a 5% administrative markup for
Okay, but we
staff.
don't do that.
And that it's not applicable because you have no staff.
You're right. Okay, my bad. Not bad, but I'm glad I asked because
Yeah, no problem.
I just want to make sure that we don't get those add up. Anything else on that? And just for the members of the public, this agreement that we're signing is the $150,000 matching grant from the state that's allowing us to move forward with the project design. So this is we've been waiting on the state to actually send us the paperwork after assurance that we were going to obtain the grant, but now we have it, assuming that we're approve it, we'll have that agreement in place and be prepared to start being reimbursed for the work that we're doing. Okay, any other discussion or comments from staff? Okay, and I'll enter any public comment on the proposed state agreement, item 7A. Okay, all right, then I'll bring it back and entertain a motion.
So I move that we authorize the agreement documents related to the grant. And also that we direct the board president to execute the documents on the district's behalf.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's a first and second. Any further discussion? And again, just actually a thank you to MNS for bringing us the opportunity, getting us in the game. You know, we were successful in getting that grant. Because of your diligent work, so we appreciate that. Okay, all in favor? It's not
No.
Needs to be a roll
It's gotta be a
call.
roll call.
the contract. Money, sorry.
President Palmer,
Aye.
Vice President Aram is absent. Member Army,
Aye.
Member O'Neill is absent. And Member Ross.
Aye.
That passes.
Great, thank you. So you'll have that and I'll sign it when we're done here.
It's right here.
Okay, don't let me leave. Okay, great. Then we'll move on to item B.
This is just this is going to be a verbal report. I hope to put something out in writing, but I completed discussions or had discussions with Stantec that continued today. Just so you know, in late November, they did produce a draft of the basis of design. I coordinated district comments on that initial draft, sent those comments back to Stantec, and they have since responded. The district has that, the revised basis of design to review. My suggestion or recommendation is that in order to move this to a final review, I would actually suggest that a subcommittee together with the district engineer take a look at the revised BOD and one more time to be sure that it addresses everybody's concerns. And that could actually be done within the next couple of weeks, which would mean that you would likely get a final basis of design report probably at your February meeting.
Okay, so would that be the technical committee?
Normally it would be the technical committee, but at this point, you've got one of those members that is out ill. And I would suggest that you have Director Army, who is a member of that committee. But I would suggest that you amongst decide at this time for this particular review to have someone serve in Director O'Neill's spot.
Okay. And I think just to add to the discussion, given Director Fayram's schedule, and I think, and also where we are with the basis of design and wanting to keep it on schedule, we will at the end of this talk about moving our February meeting up to the first week of February. So I'm looking at you guys to see if that's achievable.
from an administrative.
without having seen
Yeah,
the return basis of design report, right? So I'll just throw out, I would suggest if you and perhaps Tom,
mhm.
I mean, I don't know if you want to do it, but I think we can only have 2 members. I think
Right.
given Tom's county and project experience, I know I'm volunteering him and he's not here, but
So we can't email this new version to everybody and let them get comments to one person?
You know, you could do that. Ross, is there an issue with that, circulating the draft to all members for comments?
No, as long as the comments are not then recirculated from the person who receives them. If the person is to collect and aggregate the comments for presentation at a future public meeting, that's appropriate. If the comments of board members are then forwarded to other board members, then that would be a serial meeting violation.
Right. So could we just all get the document, get comments to Doug by a certain time and let you do the final feedback, whatever it is, to Stantec?
Sure, if the, and we could still have a technical committee meeting, it could be done virtually. Just sometimes it's helpful having, 3 technical people in a room, virtual room, albeit, and talk about it, so you can do both.
That's fine with me.
okay, so the technical meeting as it's currently constituted will review it as they're able. I'll leave that to you to coordinate. And you will also circulate it to
Yes.
all the board members with the direction to return your comments directly to Mr. Pike. Is that correct
Yeah, that would.
at this point?
At this point, yes.
So the idea is we'd get comments to Doug before the technical
Right.
meeting,
Right.
so then they can be discussed and finalized.
That'd be good.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So just to be clear, Bob, then that's something you'll be able to do turnaround by when? Because we're essentially going to have 3 weeks. Till we have
That's
another
not going to be an issue. I can work with Mike and I'll get the BOD out tomorrow, basis of design out tomorrow. That's not going to be an issue. Comments, we'll give you, let's say, a week to complete those comments. And following that time, it's just a matter of getting the schedule. And obviously, the sooner the better.
Yeah,
for-
okay. All right. Okay. Any comments from the public on the basis of design report? No? Okay, so council, does that need a motion or we've just given staff direction?
Staff direction's been given. If the other thing is to do a motion to receive and file a report.
Okay, so I need a motion to receive even if it's an oral report?
Well, the draft. Do we need to receive
No,
and
we
file a
haven't-
draft?
We didn't get a
No, you
report.
didn't see
We
it.
didn't, we
Oh,
didn't
okay, then no.
get anything in writing. He just
Right.
gave a
Verbal
verbal.
report.
oral.
Then no.
Okay. Okay, so we have staff direction and no action is needed.
Right.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to C, review of the grand jury report regarding cybersecurity for special districts.
This is basically pretty straightforward. As you know, the grand jury performs the job of oversight for government agencies within its jurisdiction, which is in this case, the county of Santa Barbara.
Right.
They have taken up the issue of cyber security threats, especially to the special districts. I think the reason and the rationale for the report is largely special districts that have large customer bases are probably more subject to cyber issues than we are at the present time. But I did think it would be advisable just to acknowledge the fact that you have received a report, you've looked at the best practices as outlined in the in the document, and that you'll consider those best practices as you develop your customer base and things become more complex and maybe more likely.
Okay. Is there a requirement to respond to the grand jury report?
Actually, in this case, I've looked at it before. Lots of times there is, and usually they give you only a certain amount of time to respond. In looking at the report, it says that the county of Santa Barbara is actually the one that is responsible for reporting. But in this case, I just think I actually had a contact by a grand jury member that shows that they're following up and
Okay.
there's an interest in it.
Well, good. Okay.
So I think Bob's letter is really good. I have no problem with it. So Doug, your people at MNS are the ones that do our website, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned, because I did want to mention that MNS is remarkably ahead of the curve, not just locally, but statewide in terms of cybersecurity. The changes over the last year have been remarkable because we were a victim of cyber attack. And we had sufficient protocols to stave it off and avoid having to pay ransom for our data. But we have multiple levels now. We're probably more secure than the county of Santa Barbara, which is saying something because everything is really tight there, as witnessed by our access to FIN, the county financial system. But if you ever want a summary report on how the filing cabinet, for example, which is our data, is being protected, and then just an overall statement of the county's protocols for protecting our financial information on FIN, it's easy to pull that together. But we're in really good shape in that regard. I can't speak for individuals. I know my laptop, everything I deal with, including flash drives, are encrypted now, and everything's saved to the cloud. And this is a safe and secure laptop. So the weak point would just be files that are saved by individual board members, probably.
Okay.
So
Which
just be
is-
aware if there's sensitive. And so far, I don't think there's anything that that we wouldn't really care that anybody looked at until we start in negotiations for certain aspects of what we do. But anyway, just want to give you that verbal assurance that we're pretty secure in regards to our data files.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you both. So I need a motion authorize the general, by motion authorize the general manager to respond to the report.
Yeah.
Didn't you do
and,
that already, or is that a draft letter?
That is a draft letter.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, so I will
COVID
move
brain.
that we authorize the general manager to send out his letter responding to the cybersecurity information we got from the grand jury.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a first and a second. Any discussion or public comment on the matter? Okay. This does not require a roll call.
No.
So all those in favor?
Bye.
Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Bob, for bringing that to us. Appreciate it. D, consideration of a resolution establishing a regular meeting schedule for 2022.
Yes, the resolution has been drafted by the city attorney and the proposed dates, which is an attachment, are those that are in compliance with the calendar schedule as we discussed previously. So all that is necessary, this will lock the schedule down for the year in terms of the board meetings.
Okay. Do you have a comment, Director Ross?
Well, it's just, you're talking about changing the meeting in February, or is that an additional meeting, or?
Well, probably, we can just still approve the regular meeting and then we can move. We could either do a special or move up the February meeting, or we could change it. Can we change, what would be cleaner? Change it now? I don't really want to change it now. I think we get an agreement amongst these three, and then you need to check with the other board members. if we're gonna move the February date. I know Director Fayram is available this first week of February. Unless we want to change it right now. What do you advise? Doesn't matter.
Ross, does it, the issue of moving the date, the only issue with it at this particular time is I would just need to again check with this facility to make
So,
sure that's
yeah.
availability.
So let's move forward with the calendar as is, and then we can have a discussion at the end about potentially changing it, subject to being able to, yeah. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the calendar? Wait, it's a motion to approve the resolution adopting the calendar,
Right.
which is a roll call.
Okay.
Can I get a motion?
I move that we adopt resolution 22-1 to establish the meeting schedule for 2022.
I'll second.
Okay, first and second, any discussion? Roll call.
Okay, President Palmer.
Aye.
Vice President Bayram is absent. Director Ross,
Aye.
Director Army,
Aye.
and then Director O'Neill is absent.
Okay, so that carries. We have a calendar. Thank you. Putting that together. Moving on to E. Adoption of the Los Olivos Community Services District wastewater reclamation project description.
Yes, Madam President, as you're aware, this has been a work in progress for some time. Project description has been reviewed by board members and commented on, as well as the project management committee. And this is a final draft submitted for your approval. Once it's been approved, it would be a good source of information. And we would post it, obviously, update the one or remove the one that's currently on the website and replace it with this one.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the project description as proposed?
I move that we adopt the revised Los Olivos Community Services District wastewater reclamation project description.
I'll second.
My goodness.
A lot of words, huh?
Yeah. So any discussion? I will just note for the members of the public here, the primary reason to revise the description as it currently stood was to ensure that the description addressed creating a solution for the entire district at one time rather than on a phased basis. So that's the primary reason for the update. Anyway, that's the primary reason for the update. So any public comment or question on the description? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 3. Hallelujah. Moving on to item F, report and recommendation regarding grant extension and use of remaining funds for county environmental health services. Bob.
Yes, again, Madam President, members of the board, back in 2020, the board received an initial grant, or the district received an initial grant of $180,000 from the county environmental health services department. That initial amount was to be used to assist the district in completing necessary studies as they progress, as the district progresses towards completing a mitigation of the problem. To date, approximately half of the grant has been expended. It was expended for mostly for the groundwater monitoring program that is now a part of our work program. They also had completed that, the work was completed mostly by GSI and involved that, and you can help me out here. There were a couple of initial pieces of work that they also did. The hydrogeological plan, if I'm not mistaken, or the study that they completed initially. Anyway, the last piece that they have yet to do is actually the construction of the implementation of a single monitoring well. And that monitoring well would use about $30,000 of the remaining funds to complete. The advantage of getting this, even a single well done, is that it would begin picking up data where there is a real absence of that data in terms of the underlying aquifer and the properties of that underlying aquifer. And that information will be very useful as we proceed with the ultimate design of the project, because it will be able to assist the district in determining especially when it gets to disposal issues, what will work best for the district. The remaining part of the dollar still available, and they've been reserved for this, is to proceed with the environmental work. It's roughly the initial environmental work. It's not to suggest that the environmental work will cost a total of $65,000. There's a lot of work that will be done. This would, once the district moves along, identifies both, gets to a point of identifying both its completes its basis of design and roughly 30% of the total design, and have at least a preferred site identified, we could then begin working on the environmental. So that $65,000 has been reserved pretty much all along for this. In terms of the wells, I included, the project management committee had some discussion as to where the best location of that well might be. And so what I did as an attachment is I identified roughly what GSI was recommending in terms of the long-term management program, to long-term monitoring program, to give you an idea of where those wells should be best placed. The suggestion in the project management committee was that it be placed in such a way that it will do us the most good, which would be, in my mind, and maybe Doug, you can help me with that as well, somewhere in the northern end of the district, so that you might be able to begin making some determinations of what may be flowing in from outside. Yes.
I have a question. Is this part of the grant extension discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, so but getting into the detail of where this should be now is part of the grant extension discussion?
Yeah, it was just, I suppose it's not.
I know, I mean, I think, no, I mean, I see where you're going, but
Right.
I think that's a separate
All right.
discussion, is when we're actually pursuing, I mean, we are pursuing that work, but I think under this umbrella, we're just talking about the grant extension.
The grant extension and.
I don't want to, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. I'm just
Right.
looking at the way
I
it's
understand.
agendized.
Yeah,
Is that something though, that is part of, when we come back and talk about the basis of design, we need to be talking about where this goes as part of that?
yeah.
Because I don't understand. Well, no, I just said, let's not talk about it. Now I want to talk about it.
So in essence, it is just a review with you. The grant extension was required because I was informed by EHS that the grant was going to expire at the end of the year.
Right,
So I submitted a request
right.
for that extension.
So and to that, we've extended it through June.
of-
We'll be ahead of it if we need to go past June, but ideally we're not going to. Is that a fair statement?
That's the plan.
Okay.
But we could extend it. You know, a better way to think of this is it's not a grant extension per se, as it
Right.
is a purchase order extension with the county.
Right.
We're like a vendor to them, and so we're just extending our purchase order.
Okay, right, okay, good.
So my question is, the motion would be to approve the letter that you, or the request that you sent already? Is
Yeah, I
that
don't know.
what we're doing?
It would be to approve the uses of those funds. If you wanted to make any change in that predicted use, it would be the time to do it.
So does the county actually monitor how we use the money?
They review our invoices, and when we touch bases with them and we have our little meetings, we go over it, and that's the extent of their involvement. They seem satisfied that we're consistently pursuing the goals we said we'd pursue and entering into the contracts we said we would enter into.
Yeah, I mean, these three buckets, for GSI, the monitoring, the load study, and the environmental haven't changed.
That's right.
So I think we're just receiving a report that
Right.
we had to extend it, you asked for the extension, here's the recap you
Right.
provided.
Right.
The way this is agendized isn't about, oh, do we want to get into a discussion if we want to reallocate the money? That's not what I read.
Sure.
So I think we're just receiving the report. And then I would say as part of, based on our project management committee discussion, the whole idea of the monitoring well being tied to the basis of design, I think we need to understand why. And if there's a reason those can't be going concurrently, there's a way to hone in on a place to strategically put a monitoring well that will serve a number of purposes, so we get ahead of beginning to get data. Or start getting to a point where we have data that'll inform the design rather than waiting. So,
To put that item to bed, maybe we should just plan on discussing it at the next meeting. There's really only a handful of places that it makes sense for it to go. We'll
Right,
just make
so
a decision and go.
we're not, yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so no action, correct?
Either you could receive and file the report if you wanted to acknowledge it, and that would be the extent of it.
Yeah, it says, because it says recommendation, approve the use of the remaining county funds. We don't need to do that. We just
No.
need to. So I'll entertain a motion to receive the report regarding the grant extension. Or something along those lines. Does that work?
Are we receiving and filing the letter in response or
Essentially,
the
it is
request,
the letter.
basically? Okay, I move that we receive and file the request made to extend the purchase order for the county grant.
I'll second.
There's a first and a second. Is there any, I should have asked for public comment, any comment on the grant extension? We're glad to have $180,000 of the county's money to help us. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay. Thanks, Bob. Moving on to item G, consideration and discussion of general manager resignation.
Yes, I've forwarded to the board my resignation. The resignation is noted here as being effective January 28th of this year. As I noted in my brief letter, it's at a point where, I need to make some life quality decisions, and probably am not wanting to go into too much detail, but feel that it's the appropriate time for me to step back and allow the board to proceed with the selection of a new general manager that will be able to focus on the issues of getting this project completed.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'm appreciate that you had to make a hard decision. And we certainly appreciate the work you've done for us over the past, what, going on 10 months, 9 months now? So since May. So we do appreciate it, Bob. It's a challenging task. There's a lot going on, and we appreciate all the effort and organization you've brought to us these past months, and be sorry to see you go. I think I speak for everyone.
And just by final comment from me, I just appreciate the opportunity to have worked with each of you individually. And one of the things that I really appreciate is your desire to solve a major problem for your community. So you're to be commended for that.
Well, thank you. Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Lisa said. You know, I really appreciate everything that you brought to us and kind of help steer us in the right direction to try to tackle some of these issues. So thank you very much for everything, Bob.
Okay, anything from any member of the public? Okay, then we need a motion to accept the resignation of the general manager.
So I move that we reluctantly accept the resignation of our general manager, Bob Pro.
I'll second it.
Okay, effective January 28th.
Right.
So, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, so given that resignation of the current general manager, that creates a need for an interim general manager. And I've already had a conversation with our previous interim general manager and our current district engineer about what.
That's a later item.
Oh, it
Sorry.
is?
Yeah. I think.
No,
No,
it's right
consideration
after.
and discussion of appointment of interim
Oh,
general
Just
manager.
Move on to the next item.
We're getting on. That's right, isn't it?
Mhm,
Okay,
you're right.
then there's recruiting.
okay. So there's no handout for that. Okay,
No, there's no
sorry.
handout. Because we all know Doug. So, well, anyway, so one of the things we discussed after Bob let me know informally last week that he was going to be officially resigning today was what are our options for management in the interim while we're beginning the search for a new general manager. And it seems we're fortunate enough to have M&S Engineers and Doug Pike, who was our interim general manager for several years prior to Bob coming on board, and our current district engineer. I did have a discussion with him about his and M&S's willingness to step in on a very interim basis, up to 90 days. So 60 to 90 days would be the term for that, not ongoing, which I know Mr. Pike is agreeable to, and I certainly wouldn't want to go past that anyway for everybody's sake. So just putting that on the table for consideration by the board. If there are other options you see, we can certainly discuss that. So I'll open it up to my co-board members to feedback on your thoughts on how to move forward in an interim basis.
Well, I think that's a nice segue. It just continues. I mean, there's no one more familiar with what we're doing than Doug, so it makes sense. The only stipulation I would see is, 60 to 90 days. Hopefully we will have been able to have recruited a general manager to start at that time, but if it takes a little bit longer, is Doug willing to go another 30 days if it has to be that?
We'll negotiate that then, I think.
Yeah, that would be my only concern.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
after this, will he go back to being our district engineer still?
That would be, I think that's what I personally envision. That's for the board to decide, but I would think that would,
That's what would be my hope too, that you would stay on.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking as well. So,
Okay.
but always at the pleasure of the board.
okay, thank you. Director Ross, any additional comments?
Oh, this was a great opportunity. So
Okay.
I can't think of any better way to do it.
Okay, I know, I feel we're very fortunate and it's unfortunate we're losing Bob, but we're fortunate to have it be in a circumstance where we have a lot of continuity backup. So Doug, do you have anything you want to offer or say on your behalf or M&S's behalf?
No, I've been taking notes and Bob has already been organizing information to me to make sure that, he's gonna help carry this thing through to his last day. But the fact is that making notes already with the mindset of helping to coordinate the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment on the matter? Okay. Then I would ask that a motion be read specifically as is drafted here by council.
Make a motion to appoint M&S Engineer Inc. Doug Pike as interim general manager under the existing contract with M&S Engineers Inc. for an initial period not to exceed 90 days, commencing per the board direction.
I will second that motion.
Okay, there's a first and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, just a thank you, Doug, for being willing to step in again. I appreciate it. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you
So
and
we
welcome
don't
back.
need a roll call for that one, huh?
No, it's not money. I mean, it's an existing contract, so I don't. Do we need a roll call on that, Ross?
No, it's an existing contract.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Thanks. Consideration, okay, then moving on to I, consideration and discussion of recruitment for permanent general manager. My suggestion was we have a description that's less than a year old that we spend a lot of time putting together when we begin to recruit for Bob. So I think if we can dust that off, Doug, get it reposted to the places we reposted, get it posted on the website. If you want, I can take a look at it before we do that, but I'd like to get that up in yesterday. By the end of the week, if we can. You and I can work on it tomorrow if you have bandwidth. Is that, well, that's what I would like. Is that something that's possible on your end?
Yeah, I can forward it to you tomorrow. We can talk about it
Okay,
Friday morning if you like. I still travel every Thursday.
okay, all right,
So
fair enough.
Thursdays are the only day that are a little weird for me.
Okay, but if you could send it and then let's set a time to have a conversation if that's the pleasure of the board.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Direct staff to begin recruitment effort for permanent general manager. We don't need a motion for that. We'll just give staff direction. So Doug and I will work on that and we'll keep the board apprised. All right. Okay, then moving on to J, approval of pre-qualified list of public works consultants.
Yes, Madam President and members of the board. This item is actually on the agenda at the request of Vice President Halen. He was aware that the county was going through a process of pre-qualifying consultants for public works projects. This is a process that is commonly used by a number of public agencies. And the value of adopting the county's list, there's no problem with that. The value in it is simply that it provides you with a list of consultants that you can use, and it ends up shortening up the recruitment time when you're using professional staff. And so there's a real advantage to it. It is not meant to be all encompassing. I mean, if you have a particular consultant that you want to have considered for any piece of work, you can at that time also entertain that consultant. So it's just a matter of trying to ease the workload for both the board and the district as well as staff.
Yeah, it seems like a nice tool.
Yeah, absolutely, especially for, work we're doing with the county, it just expedites moving forward. So I will entertain any public comment on the matter. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt this list of pre-qualified consultants for potential future use by the district.
I'll second.
Okay, first and second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Think about it.
Well, my only thought process is, I do a lot of work for a lot of these people that are on this list. So
You don't want to.
I don't want to, yeah, I don't want
Okay.
to. That's my only, as I was going through it, yeah, I do a lot of work with these
Well,
people.
That's
do you hear
okay.
that, Ross?
But that's,
That would present a conflict, yeah. So I think Director Army's instincts are right, and he would not want to take part in the vote.
Okay, so can we do a 2-1 or should we kick it to February?
You need to move it to February because you don't have a majority of the board present.
Okay. Okay, so
yeah, well, I don't understand the conflict because this is just a
it's just a
list.
list.
And before we engage any of these people, we would have to look for the conflicts. But it's just a resource, say, here are some options. So I don't see the conflict until we get to the point of actually doing something, then we just have to make sure we don't have one.
Because this is what, essentially this is creating a short list of contractors, and Director Army has indicated that he does work for them. So he is in a position where he could potentially receive a financial windfall from this winnowing down of the universe of all potential contractors down to these preferred ones. Also, the conflict of interest laws not only apply to actual conflicts, but the perceived creation of a conflict. So even if there is no direct financial conflict here, it does at least create the perception of a potential conflict. And my advice would be for a recusal and to kick it to February for a consideration by the full board.
Okay, but I think this list is not driving us to do anything. It's just saying there may be some advantages to using these organizations, but we can pull in anybody we want, right? This is not limiting us as far as who we use, right?
No, but I would just say, based on what council just said, the cautious thing to do is, I mean, it's not holding up any work, right? It's not time sensitive. It's just something that Director Fayram wanted us to do. And I think it's prudent to do.
See,
But I just, but it is it's a short listing of contractors.
it's a short listing of engineering firms and contract, mostly engineering firms. And my company is tied up with them for annual contracts. We go all over the state with these people. My company basically identifies and maps underground utilities. And so we're brought in as part of their engineering team when you pick somebody, and they just hand us a PO and we go to work. So not knowing, but I recognize a lot of these names, and a lot of these names I have exclusivities with, so I'm
Let's just
kinda
move it to February.
uncomfortable.
I mean,
So-
I get it.
No,
but
that's
let's-
fine. So who can vote on this? Fayram can't?
Oh, he can because he's retired
Oh, he can.
Mhm.
Okay, then Brian
and you
can.
and I can.
Yeah, you two can.
Does Brian, but
I don't
Brian
know.
can't, or we don't know if he has
We
tie-ins?
probably have the same thing.
He probably has a few, but
Let's,
Okay, so it's gonna be
let's
Tom
make
and us.
sure that
Okay.
Tom, you, the three of us are here.
because I think it's a great, my personal side, this is a great list of
Yeah.
good quality contractors and engineering firms that we would want to be part of to use for our services. I just,
That's
No,
fair.
I appreciate your bringing it up.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we'll move that to February.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Then moving on to 8, general manager's report. Bob?
Yeah, first, just a couple of things that I've been working on, and then we can go over the forms. Actually, an RFQ is out for the assessment engineer. I expect that we may be getting responses by the end of the week. If we do get sufficient responses, then my suggestion is that Doug and myself will look at those and qualified responses. And I'd also suggest that the finance committee weigh in on that selection. So that is moving along. The Eastern Management Area of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency completed their plan last week. and that they need to submit to the staff to the state to comply with Sigma. I did review that plan in detail and actually sent them a letter indicating that the Los Olivos district would be interested in entering into a partnership, especially relative to groundwater monitoring for this area. Provided them with a copy of our groundwater monitoring plan as well, so they have that. Other items that I've been working on, I have the update that I'm working on, the district update and term information update. I should have a draft of that ready to go by the first of the week.
Is that the one to the community?
Yes.
So, and usually the LAFCO and the community one dovetail pretty well.
They
So
do. I did talk to LAFCO. Their February meeting schedule is pretty booked at this point.
well, we don't need to show up. We just need to submit a letter.
We'll just get the letter and we'll
Yeah.
send it to them, and then they can agendize it as they
If-
see fit.
Yeah. They just need the quarterly update from us. That was the one of the conditions of the extension was that we provide a quarterly update written.
Right. So those are some of the areas that I have been working on. I had attached a series of charts. In the agenda, there are two charts, the basic agenda. One is the action plan and was an update as of December 5th. But you've updated that since then, Doug, if I remember correctly.
What you show here, these are the most recent updates of these
Okay.
documents, and then what's on this little skinny document that everybody's got is the financials from Sen.
And then the WRF grant requirements summary, that's really yours, Doug.
Yeah.
That was based on wanting to know what's required of the state grant and who's responsible for it and an estimated cost.
You want me to comment on that?
Sure.
Okay. Well, this is on 2 pages, but if you can visualize it as if it were connected. And just as you flip the page over, it was all one chart that would have been too tiny to really read comfortably. It's based on a discussion that the project management committee had, and making it crystal clear as to what the grant requirements are. In October of 2022, we have a draft report due, and it needs to basically meet this criteria. And this clarifies who is going to do what, and you can see that we have consultants doing what they're doing, and then M&S is the district engineers filling in the gaps. Always intended that it would be that way. And there's a budget now associated with that effort, however. So at a future meeting, I'll be bringing, this same item, the same document, because the board would have to approve additional services for that effort to fill in and complete the report. That was not blocked out. I mean, it could just be a part of the standard GM services or district engineer services. However, makes sense for us to lay it out independently, and you can see what those costs are anticipated to be. And board can discuss those and approve those as you do there. And these are conservative numbers. I anticipate some refinements on the M&S costs. I pulled this together relatively quickly, and so that you could see what basically this corresponds with the budget that was stated in the grant a year ago. And then I've got a current estimated budget where the M&S involvement is already one iteration of reducing those costs, and probably another iteration of reducing those costs as I do a draft.
So I guess the key thing to me is I see the due dates from what we looked at earlier, but I don't think we can use those because we need to get money back sooner. So I think we really need to develop due dates for all these activities that keep us financially where we need to be. So I recommend that be something, maybe we'll do that in the project management meeting, but we need to figure
Just from
out.
a cash flow standpoint.
Yeah.
And I believe we can do that.
Mhm.
And I believe the state will entertain that as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll just be surprised that we're, someone's doing something early, but should be okay.
Thank you. Any other questions on that?
You also have the update from Greg Marquez from M&S relative to the grant seeking strategy. And he's done a really good job of identifying what grants may be available. And he also indicates, he has a chart in there that indicates when these grant opportunities will require applications. On the state side, some of that is still open because they're still developing those projects, but I think the chart is great. The summary is, it gives you a good solid basis to move forward with. And I think Greg's indication is that he'll probably update this, not at every meeting, but at least once a quarter or maybe more frequently.
Whatever frequency the board desires, they'll make it the time available.
This is great. I think, so that's part A. Part B is there's a couple on here we need to hop on.
Right.
So other than having an updated spreadsheet of what's available, it's like, what are we
Yeah.
targeting and what's the strategy and what resources do we need to get the application done?
That's the
and to be
value in having
competitive.
him come to meetings is, light a fire, help us. I mean, that's part of the responsibility that
Right.
MS has, is to light the fire, make sure we don't miss deadlines.
Yeah, because this next, the Irwin one opens next week with a deadline of February 21st. So we, I think whether it's through project management or the finance, we should probably bring this under a committee too, so that we can be working on it real time between meetings, obviously. Or at least I would, or think we should discuss how we do that, because this will take either a budget, right, an estimate from M&S as to what it's going to take us to get it done, and then what district or board resources do you need in
We
order
also
to complete
need-
the applications.
Right. We also need timing. So for the IRWIM, if it's due on the 21st, when do we have to authorize it for it to happen? We need feedback on that.
Well, I
And
think,
how much?
yeah, well, and first we need a proposal, like, of that, what do we want to ask for? I think when we had an initial conversation, this is interesting because we're a newcomer to IRWIM, other folks have paid. Anyway, we need to figure out what the best ask is to maximize our probability of getting those funds, and if we potentially partner with another entity to get those funds, especially on the monitoring. I'm just, let's be creative and figure out how to maximize not only maximize the probability that we get it, but maximize the amount that we're eligible for. So it looks like to me, Doug, unless I'm wrong, you've got that IRWIM on line 1, and then the sustainable groundwater round 2. But that doesn't open till fall, but I guess I would just look at again. If we're going to build a foundation of a grant package, how do we use what we're doing for IRWIM to tee up into that? And then lastly, the other part of this is looking at where we are in a Prop 218 process and how do some of these big ticket grant responses fit into that? Because without some significant, grant funding, we're gonna, the more grant funding we have, the higher our probability of success in a Prop 218. So we're receiving this report, I guess, direction. Do you need more direction from staff than a discussion we just had? Do any of you, Mike or Brad, have any other comments
So
or
I think
thoughts?
this discussion has already been useful and I've taken notes and so, this is pretty fresh and so I'll take some time and Bob and I, in our last month working together here, will jump on this and if we need to hold a special meeting, we'll do that.
Yeah, or-
If we need to take it to a committee, we'll do that.
Okay,
But
and feel
we'll
free to
get this
loop,
thing moving forward.
okay, and feel free to loop me in on the staff and the working level. Like, this is my priority this year. And I think the other part of this is the advocacy. Once we know what these are, making sure we already have, Assembly Member Lamone's office is taking an interest, Heal the Ocean is interested. We've got folks who are willing to advocate for us and getting these funds. So that's my focus. So I'm happy to participate to the extent it's helpful for the district to move this forward. Anyway, Doug, I didn't mean to interrupt you if I did. I thought,
So,
Thinking alike.
so as
Great.
far as this goes, we have the Irwin thing, we have a bunch of decisions. So it says cost sharing, that means we're limited as to what we can propose, I think. And then at the next page, it has a list of what you can use the money for, and it's a lot of stuff.
right.
So we have to decide what things we can cost share and propose. So there's a lot of strategy that's got to be developed in the next few days, I think.
Yeah, so just so it's in everybody's minds. Success of these goes up when you hire a group like Greg's to just make it happen. And I see that time and time again. Having this general knowledge is great, and there's a lot of things that we need to do, but there's nothing like putting the focused team on it. And they just help make it happen because they're thinking about, they're being paid to think about this every minute, every day till that deadline hits. And you don't need examples, but there's a lot of recent examples of great success this particular group has had because they're good at dogging it. Just so you know, we started working with them a year ago and they had 4 people full-time. Now they have almost, I think, 8.5 people that are working for this group, and they have an unusually high success rate in what they do because of the team that Greg Hawkins has put together. So we just got a $4.5 million facility up in Greenfield through this group, and it was a competitive grant. And we made the cut in a highway because they focused, because this is all they do. They look at all the criteria in terms of the numbers and ranking and points and advocacy and all those factors that you're familiar with in your profession, Dr. Palmer. And so anyway, so I'm just going to emphasize that as we get into this, and if something looks really good and we really want to pursue it, then you got to spend the money to get it.
Right.
That's just the way it works. I'd be ready to pull the trigger when it's time.
So are we interested in the Irwin thing, or are we not going to pursue it, or what's the
No,
thought?
we can proceed.
Yeah.
So do we have, the general manager in a position to engage Greg's group, or do we have to authorize something or? what?
That's already been done.
Yeah, they're already engaged. They're
They've been engaged
authorized
for a
up
while.
to,
But only 5K, right?
10.
up to 10. Yeah.
So is that enough, do you think?
For the Irwin, yes.
Okay,
Well, you're setting high expectations based on your glowing recommendations of Greg. So
Well,
just
you
so
know
you
what,
know.
I've just seen the success.
No, I know.
of it.
Well, they, that's how we got the state water one.
Yeah.
So,
But you know what, if, once, they set realistic expectations, that group, and so these wouldn't be listed if he didn't feel good about them. So,
great. Okay. Thank you. So this is also just continuing under the GM report, correct? And thanks for getting, I mean, I'll digest this too, but I went straight to the table and that's helpful.
yeah, I think we should let Greg know that we really appreciate this information. I think the way he's put it together is very good. Very helpful.
Okay, anything else in your report,
The
Bob?
only last thing is just, as you know, I'm working on a draft of the response to the lamp comments. I'm hoping that I will have an initial draft of that tomorrow, actually. And I'll get that out to you in,
Okay.
that'll already encumber the comments that I've received from most of you regarding the lamp.
Because we're getting that to them on Friday,
Right.
by Friday, close business Friday. At least to get conversation going. Okay. Anything else from you, Bob? Any questions from the board? The only thing I didn't hear an update on was the effluent disposal study.
I'd have to
Oh, yeah.
turn to Doug on that.
you know, we'll come back at the next meeting, hopefully with a recommendation for who we hire to do that.
Okay,
We'll just set that. That's all I can really say on that because it's advanced only so far as we have a list of who we're going to send the RFP out to. We could direct it to GSI, but I think General Civil might be better actually for this. It isn't focused on specific disposal methods. And so we'll get that that RFP out next week.
but you have the RFP in the list.
Yes.
Okay, so it'll go out next week. Okay, great. So back in February. Okay. All right. Comment on informational items. What is that?
Any informational items that individual board members
Okay.
want to bring forward.
I have none.
Don't have any.
Call for agenda items. I think the only thing, council,
Yes.
we have an election year. This is an election year for 3 members. So
Correct.
timeline, I think just a quick overview at the next meeting of what that timing looks like
Okay.
would be helpful.
The county elections, well, county elections is going to be a little bit busy because they're still receiving redistricting maps.
Right.
And they will be through April. But I will look to see if they have an updated timeline. In the absence of a specific timeline for the November election, then I'll just put together a quick outline of the election deadlines based on the elections code.
Okay, that'd be helpful just because, anyway, thank you. That's my one request. Okay, anything else?
I have a question is, there might be something I'm not aware of. So I just want to make sure if there is or isn't for the next, if I should put it in my notes for the next meeting. I don't know when the next time discussions or information will be coming back for consideration, say on the Stan Tech supplemental siting study or things like that.
At the same time that we review the BOD, I'll include what information I've received with the siting, and I'll send that all out as a package to each board member, and it can be done at the same time.
Because that informs the basis of design. We can't have one without the other.
So I will send that out tomorrow to the members, and then I would suggest that we'll receive those comments within a week, and then have the technical committee take a look at it.
And we're inviting Stan Tech to the next
Oh, yes,
meeting, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that'll be good.
So on that, that's a good, anything else, Doug, clarification wise?
No, that was just important in my mind.
Yeah,
because it's an
absolutely.
important step. to keep working on.
So then we go to next meeting, which is February 9th. Director Fayram will not be here that week. So he, and especially with Director O'Neill's situation, I think if we can, we should move it up to that week prior. When Director Fayram's here, it'll get us a week earlier on the basis of design, because we're a little behind on that already. Can everyone look at their calendar right now? At least so we can give Doug and Bob a couple dates to work with. Or not,
Well, I know myself, I'm good, second or the third.
the second or the third.
Mhm.
Do you know if how you look the second or the third?
I should be available.
Okay, so let's tentatively say Groundhog Day. That's entertaining.
Oh, except for that day.
Really? Really?
No, we're actually launching on that day.
Okay.
But that will be done by.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Well, no, I'm not sure.
well, of course
With
you're not sure.
SpaceX, you never know.
Okay.
So,
So can the three of us hold the second and the third? I know and then let's confirm with Director Fayram, check with the church, and then confirm with Stan Tech. And confirm with Doug.
Sure. I've already given Stan Tech a heads up that they may be moving.
Okay.
The board may be moving it a week early.
Okay, so if you can, hopefully we can get that wrapped up by Friday as well. So if we can all just hold the second and the third, please. Okay,
And are we gonna do in person or virtual?
well, I guess we have the three of us to decide if we want to entertain going back to virtual. We need to do a special meeting to change our, to have whatever Ross tells us we have to do to make that happen.
You need to consider a resolution for reauthorizing and recognizing state of emergency and using the remote conferencing provisions under AB 361.
Yeah, I personally am inclined to leave it in person through February, and then we'll see what the tea leaves look like then. That's my vote, but I'm flexible.
Yeah, I'm open either way, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Do you have a preference, interim general manager? Okay. Any public comment? Ms. Gott, we heard your comment earlier, so we know where you stand. Okay, so it sounds like
I'm
we'll.
sorry, I just got to the unmute button. What I was going to suggest is you actually send out an agenda that allows people to attend virtually as well as attend in person, if that's what you would like. Many of the other public agencies are allowing that and doing that right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, well, I think at this point we'll be in person in February.
Well, is this arrangement something we just keep on doing or not?
Well, Ross will be here in person next time, assuming his other districts are meeting in person. That's
Starting in March, yes, but since you're moving up to the 2nd of February, which is the first Wednesday, that wouldn't be possible. And my other two clients are probably staying remote through February at this point.
Okay.
And part of the board's decision too, just as a reminder, is that the Wi-Fi support in the church is not robust. And so the more people that end up piling into Zoom, that's a lot more bandwidth that the laptop has to push through an already small Wi-Fi pipe. And so, you know, it helps. What it does is it increases the instability of the platform and potentially robs people who are attending from the public remotely from the opportunity to observe and participate in a meaningful way. So, I mean, it's a balance of the interests, obviously, but just as a reminder, that was part of the board's decision before.
Right, thank you for that reminder. Okay. Right, well, I say we're here in person in February. That's my preference. If something changes from a public health standpoint that would indicate otherwise, then we can entertain having an emergency meeting to have a resolution. But for now, I think we stay the course.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. All right, unless there's anything else, how about a motion to adjourn at 7:39?
I so move.
You awake?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:39.
Okay, first and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? No one. Okay, whatever. All right, thank you all. Bob, thank you. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. Thank you, Anna Marie. And thank you, Ross.
Of course. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good
be
night.
well.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. Not a problem. Thank you so much. I'll do that. Last meeting. What I will do is.
Thank you,
There's a
good night.
signature.
I see a couple
Oh, that's
of
Lisa's.
I didn't like it.
You know, oh, you dropped your
Oh,
wallet.
perfect.
Is she,